Wave.
We are live. Happy Friday. Welcome to Disruptors Live. I'm Abby Rosenblum. That right there is Andy Pitek, broadcasting from where are you at again?
Providence, Rhode Island.
Okay, and Jordan and I are in Denver. We're super excited, Jordan, to have you on the stream. I want to give a little intro so everyone gets to know you, but obviously, they're going to get to know you really well over the next half an hour. So, for those of you who don't know Jordan, he is an avowed introvert, experienced leader, and self leadership coach. He holds an MA in communication and leadership, is certified as an associate certified coach by the International Coaching Federation, and specializes in uncovering and nurturing other people's unique value and goodness. And you really do, because I feel like I've experienced you doing that for me firsthand.
I love that. Yeah, awesome.
So thanks for being here. Give us the backstory. I think it's a good place to start. What brought you into the coaching space? Because you do kind of have a cool story of what brought you here.
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you both for having me, first and foremost. So yeah, as I was working on my master's, I ended up finding a podcast, and it's the name of it is The Look and Sound of Leadership, and essentially, what that podcast is all about is it's an executive coach who narrates his conversations with his clients. And the more I was listening to it, the more I was engaging with it, the more I kind of realized I was having some similar conversations. I'm not going to say like they were the exact same, right? This guy's an executive coach, very experienced at that time. Um, but yeah, I was just kind of seeing what was happening with his clients. They were going from A to B, like kind of changing their mind about something and giving themselves permission to do so. So I got really fascinated with what coaching was all about. I learned all about it, and here we are today, right? Like kind of making that a reality.
And you specialize in working with people that are a little bit more on the introverted side rather than the
Hmm.
extroverted side. So, can you define for people, because we even talked about this, I think sometimes introverts get a bad reputation, but people don't understand what that actually means.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for that. I love asking, like, right? Like, you hear the word introvert, or someone says, "I'm an introvert." It's like, well, what do you automatically think? Like, most people are like, someone that never leaves the house, bookworm, or like whatever else whatever other like perceptions are out there. But essentially, right, like people who have a preference for introversion, because I think that's a key thing too, is it's a scale, right? And like some people prefer introversion, some people prefer extroversion, but both sides of those scales like exist in all of us. We just have a preference for one side. So people who have that preference are a little more inward turning, right? Like typically a little more thought oriented, kind of up in their head versus more verbal, right? Like enjoy a little bit more of like the deeper, meaningful, intimate, settings, connections, conversations, and ultimately feel recharged after being alone. So while some people, it was a long week. It's pretty standard for, like people to go out to the bar and have happy hour and depress and recharge and that. Other people like to just go home and watch a show on Netflix or, whatever else it may be. So I just want to point out though that like both sides exist in all of us. We're not just one or the other.
Right. I think that's such a good point too. And I think sometimes, I do, here's my opinion at least, and I'm curious what both of you think, that COVID kind of allowed people to embrace their introvert side a little bit more. At least I
Mhm.
experienced that as someone who I thought I was like the most extroverted person that existed, having some kind of social plan every night of the week or, wingmanning a friend out at the bars. And then I realized, whoa, being at home is kind of cool. And just being alone is really great. Jordan, have you seen that transition more so over the past couple years?
Yeah, I really do believe COVID kind of had us look in the mirror a little bit and just be like, okay, like there's a lot of my habitual things that I've been doing in my life, but like, are they what I what are like truly serving me all the time, right? And like as consistently as possible. And not saying that going out is a bad thing. Like I don't get me wrong, like I've been to happy hour plenty of times and I love shows at Red Rocks and I like being around that kind of stuff. But yeah, there's, I think, just kind of this more innate part of ourselves that we don't always get in touch with, because society has us keeping, like, staying so busy. And it's like there's this perception of if you're not busy, then you're not working hard to be successful. And sometimes we just need to chill and, like, actually think about what we want, um, and maybe make a different choice for ourselves.
I always look at it also as being having introverted tendencies doesn't always mean being alone. For me, I could even be at the office or out somewhere with a couple of my employees or, with a significant other or something. And that's a lot different because it's not being out in public with strangers at a bar or restaurant, an event, whatever. And Jordan used the word recharge. My favorite way of describing it is really that people who say that they're extroverted charge their battery while they're out and with people. That really makes them feel alive. That really makes them feel great. So they can go home and spend that time being alone or unplugged where they don't prefer it, versus people that have introverted tendencies charge up when they're alone and they go out and spend all their energy all day being around people and they have to go back and recharge. But it's really just what you prefer and where you see using energy and where you see you're more comfortable. But I think people also, like you said, uh, the like reclusive nature, being alone, not going out. There are people that are extremely busy, but they do it. Think about people that are like Twitch streamers or whatever. They don't leave their house, but they're talking to thousands of people.
Right.
There's something about it. It's not that you're not connecting. It's not that you're unplugged and all you do is read books all day. It's just that people have a different way of communicating. And I think that COVID did change that a lot. And online dating has changed that a lot. But the whole thing about people having pods or families or roommates, the being home factor doesn't mean being by yourself. It means being in your controlled and comfortable environment where you feel like you can recharge and you're not using any of your stored energy trying to be what you have to be for the outside world.
Right. And I kind of feel like, Andy, you and I, as business partners in Disrupticity, we kind of fit our roles of where we're happiest. I'm the person who's doing the sales, talking to customers, making sure everyone's happy. Andy, make sure everything is going well behind the scenes. You're putting all the videos together, making that happen. So, I think it is important. And Jordan, I'm guessing you probably coach people through this in finding a job or a business that actually fits how you want to live your life and how you want to interact with people. Is that something that you see come up in your coaching?
100%. Yeah. And it's like, I've gone through it myself of, you know, I I thought I needed to be this version of a person to be successful and, at my company that I worked at, or, just in life in general. It's like, but there was this disconnect of like who I am at to my core, right? And like what's what I'm pursuing career wise, right? And like that's
Mhm.
definitely a lot of what I help people with coaching wise is, like let's find your very unique gifts and strengths because we all have them, right? And like let's find the alignment between what you're doing, on a daily basis or in your relationship with your significant other or with your friends or as a family member. Like let's bring out those unique traits that you have, and let's honor them, and let's like shine a light on them and help you use those in ways that feel good not only for you but for others around you too, so you can start influencing things in a really just cool way, to be, I guess, simple about it.
Right. And you have a super interesting tool that I know about for people to kind of figure out what their strengths or, challenges are. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, I'd love to. So, in my coaching, I am actually certified in something called axiogenics. So, what we aim to do with that is help people understand that pretty much everything begins with a thought, right? Like anything we say, anything we act on, anything we do in life, it begins with a thought, whether it's conscious or not. And ultimately, what this tool is able to measure is our unique thinking perspective of ourselves and our unique thinking perspective of the world. So, our worldview, our self view. And what we can find out is that we have what we call thinking biases And that's much different than, right, like racial bias or, like kind of our standard like definition of that. But just ultimately, we have, yeah, cognitive or thinking biases, and we have cognitive or thinking assets. So our biases are more so attached to our unconscious thoughts, like our subconscious thinking, and they're just thinking patterns. So we start thinking something happens in our life, we create a thinking pattern, and we think that that's like how it has to be now and to the future.
Mhm.
Our thinking assets are what help us actually expand our mind a little bit more. And it's all about what it comes down to is like creating value in the world, and not value as in money or on a monetary basis, but like value as in like elevated quality of life. And like that thing that happens throughout your day that your heart knows like it's a good thing, right? But like it's not necessarily that there's a tangible takeaway from it. And with my self leadership program that I take people through, I really just equip them with the best, their very best. And I'm not saying I have the best way, because like I honor every single person, and every single person is different, right? So that's what's cool about this report too, is out of the 30 plus people I've coached in the past year, not one of those reports has been the same. And like that's what I love celebrating, right? And like let's find out your unique um, ways of thinking that are either getting in the way of what you want to achieve, and also, okay, like let's have awareness around that, and your unique ways of thinking that are going to get you to where you want to go. But we have to have clarity in where you want to go first.
Right. And sometimes that's the hardest place to even start. Even yesterday, someone was asking me, like, what do you want to do next? And I was like, I don't know. I'm just going to wake
Yeah.
up tomorrow and go on this live stream. But it's so good. I think, as I have worked with a coach before, and Jordan, you and I have had some really cool conversations, and I've gotten to sit in on some of your group coaching too. You have a unique way of making people feel really comfortable, and, being able to figure out what that is, what your unique thing is, which sometimes I think we shy away from, is my kind of gut reaction, that you're like, okay, I'm just going to do my thing. I'm going to collect my paycheck and live my life, rather than figuring out what actually makes me unique and happy and feeling good about my life.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that, by the way, too. And Abby, you have a unique gift too, right? Like we all do.
Well, thank you.
And um, but yeah, like I know it can be kind of like challenging to grasp like what the view key report actually captures. But for example, what you just brought up, like one thinking perspective that we measure, the thinking perspective itself is called enjoying what you're doing, right? And it's a lot of what you just described right there. It's like, okay, like got to do what I got to do to, like make ends meet, and like we'll keep working through it. And you know, sometimes I wish things were different, but that's not my reality today. And just like really just kind of tolerating that and accepting that. And like I got to a point in my career where I was like in that spot precisely, but then got introduced to coaching and introduced to this, way, this report that actually like literally changed my life and like how I was thinking about things. And that kind of connects back to introversion too. I was like, it's not it's not that I am, or I have a preference for introversion that was causing challenges in my life. It was how I was thinking about my introversion. Like a big difference.
Mhm. That's super interesting. Yeah, I want to bring it back to the introverted thing, because I know our whole topic was how to excel as an introverted leader. Do you feel like there is a different way that you approach leadership, being more introverted versus someone who's extroverted? How do you see that play out?
hmm Yeah, so when I was in the corporate space, I was a supervisor for almost 8 years, I want to say. So yeah, I was in a leadership role for a while, and I really found that, my more like laid back approach and my more kind of even kill like temperament and like all of that was really helpful in places that were like high stress, high like energy and high. It's like, okay, like let's take a step back and just like think about this for a second, and not underestimating the power of just like a good timely question, right? And like, I don't know, I've been in meetings that it kind of just feels like this ping pong, like pinball machine. Like things are just like bouncing around. And sometimes that's awesome. Sometimes that's great to like have those types of brainstorm sessions. But like
Hmm.
if we don't have like clear purpose on like what we're trying to achieve, or we're just kind of throwing ideas out there, like that's where I really relied on my introversion of like kind of taking a step back and just like kind of thinking more critically about things and just asking, okay, like this is great. We have a bunch of ideas, but yeah, like where are we going? Or like what's next? What's the outcome that we're hoping for? And I think the other side of that where I really used my introversion was like, I do have a preference for intimate settings and one-on-one conversations. And, I could not wait for my one-on-one time with my team members. Like I met with them one-on-one for an hour each month, my team of anywhere from 8 to 12 people. And I found that those were the times where, I could really connect on a whole nother level with those people and like actually see them and what they're hoping for and like what they're struggling with, specifically unique to them, and helping like create an environment where people feel seen and heard and respected and valued. I mean, that's what led to, I mean, not to brag about it, but like just really,
You should brag
um,
about it.
like just really great results as far as like almost like completely eliminating turnover on my team. Um, employee satisfaction going up from 78 to like in the 90s%. And not only that, but like the customer satisfaction scores moved to, percentage in the 90s as well. And it's all, I really feel like it stems from taking the time to value a person for who they are and value their time for being there, because they could literally be anywhere else in the world, right? Like just taking time to respect that is I attribute like my preference for introversion and just like really taking the time to work with people one on one. And it's kind of what led me to coaching.
It's funny how undervalued listening is these days. And being somebody who is, as an introverted leader, I always joke that I have the guy version of resting bitch face, because if I'm not talking, if I talk, I'm really animated, but if I'm not talking, I look like I don't want to be here.
Right.
But I always use the example of like people who sit down at football games. You go to a college football game and people are jumping up and down and like doing the cheers and singing the songs and looking at the big screen. But like you see the old guy who's sitting there like hyper focused on the game, and he is having a great time, but he looks like a curmudgeon, but he's there to watch football. Maybe he's listening. They used to have the guys who would have like the FM radio headset and they're listening to the radio broadcast
Oh yeah.
from the non-PA announcers. But I sit at a presentation and the people get nervous because I look like I don't want to be there, and then I ask a question and then they're really comfortable. But you have to think about the fact that I'm just a really cerebral guy and there's always something going on up there, and I'm taking in everything they're saying so I can give valuable feedback rather than just blurting out to hear myself talk. And I think that that's a huge thing, and that's exactly what Jordan touched on, was just the idea that you're sitting there listening and taking it in and letting other people speak so they can also work something out, by having more than 10 seconds to talk, around superiors or people with more experience. It allows you to give so much more meaningful and refined advice, and that's what I really value about coaches like Jordan.
Yay.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for pointing that out, Andy. Well said,
I
man.
love
Like
that.
I mean, the whole listening thing is something I 100% like agree is undervalued in today's world. And I mean, just how often does a miscommunication happen because of lack of listening, right? And like, or we think we're listening. I don't know. Have either of you been in a situation where you like shared something like maybe kind of vulnerable with someone, or um, on the more sensitive side of something, and they completely like got it wrong or just like started like talking about themselves right away. Right? Like those little things make such a huge difference in build trust and building relationships and helping like unlock just the more, you know, the goodness and the value of people. Because if we don't take the time to listen, then not much is going to change, in my opinion.
It's so true. It's even funny, like, I have this conversation with my husband all the time because we're both in jobs where all we do really is listen and then ask thoughtful questions. And then it seems like sometimes in like when we're out socializing, with friends, not all friends, if you're watching this, I'm not calling you out. But usually it's like, us kind of asking the questions, listening,
Mhm.
and then we're like, were we just at dinner with them and they literally didn't ask us anything? I don't know if you guys, I'm sure you guys have had that experience. But
Yeah,
it's so interesting.
definitely.
And then you think of, okay, wait, am I being a salesperson and just trying to get people to talk about themselves? Because that's always, the advice
Right.
that's given. Like, hey, get someone to talk about themselves and they'll always have a good time with you. But it's a kind of an interesting thing in friendships when you're like, wow, or family members, and you're like, oh, I just listened to you, just like emotionally dump on me for the last hour. And you weren't even like, and how are you, Abby?
Mhm.
I think a lot about the whole like teach a man to fish thing. Like give him a fish and you feed him for a night, teach him to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. This parable, I think it's a biblical thing. But one of the ways that I help a lot of people that I work with is filling whatever role they need. And so I've been around a lot of people lately that are trying to build communities or become event planners or become coaches. And oftentimes they need somebody to come and help move stuff or somebody to sit in the back or whatever. And this year I've done a ton of photography. And so I'm at these conferences and I'm like the camera dude running around doing the AV switches and using video cameras. And I hear stuff that I just completely disagree with. Or like, the people who are presenting don't really have a ton of experience. And like, I know that I do. And this is not a forum for me to be able to interrupt or to say anything. But when they say, does anyone out there have any input to put in? Like, I'm not there for that. I'm there because I'm the photographer and letting them talk and interact with each other and not have somebody butt in and expert explain it is oftentimes a lot better because it's interactive and it allows people to grow together. And I have a really hard time. We have a client that's really into human design, and she said that it's a projector thing that I always feel like I have to be able to um, help people and have some kind of input because I want to nurture them. And it's been funny because I'm at these events where it has nothing to do with me. I'm supposed to be quiet, be the dude with his eye in the lens. And it's fun to be a fly on the wall because I wouldn't otherwise be there in these specific things that are for, I don't know, real estate or something that I'm not involved in. But the listening and then afterwards asking really important questions, then all those people want to work with you or want to interact with you in some way because you're the guy who didn't say anything. But it's very much a less is more,
Mhm.
or none is a lot.
So if anyone is watching this stream and ever wondering what's Andy thinking over there, there's a lot going on, I'm telling you.
Yeah, just ask him.
Just ask. Exactly. Jordan, I wanted to make sure I asked you, as you have been coaching, business owners, leaders, everything in between, what are some of the biggest changes you've noticed in business and the leadership world lately?
Yeah, yeah. So, when you brought up, COVID earlier, right? And like
Yeah,
that's completely changed the planet, right? And like just how we go about
seriously.
doing business and all of that. So I really find that, like both in the business world and in the coaching world is that we're just continuing to try to like kind of systemize everything. And I'll try my best to explain what I mean by that. Right? It's like so many people, it seems like to me, at least from my experience, are looking kind of for this template for the future of like, okay, like if you do these three things, then you're gonna get this result and everything's fine. It's like, okay, but like
That'd be
what
nice.
happens yeah, exactly. Like what happens when the next conflict comes up in a relationship or what happens when the next, like bump in the road comes up in the business world, it's like, okay, so let's maybe not think about what system we need to create that's going to be flawless. Because I mean, if someone creates that, more power to them, right? Like it's more so, let's create a mindset that can help us like navigate those bumps in the road more smoothly, right? And let's develop a mindset that's focused on creating value versus kind of fear based and versus, like kind of keeping people in this little box. And it's like, okay, like here's your one little role and you just do that and do it this way and then we'll be fine. Right?
Mhm.
Like how almost demeaning, right? Like how is that really honoring like who that person is and their thought process and their emotional connection to what they're doing. So yes, we definitely need systems. I'm not saying we don't, but like let's create frameworks and let's create systems that actually allow people to be themselves in the middle. It's okay to have, right, like here we are today and let's have a goal over here. And then, if I'm a leader, it's like, okay, like you're empowered to get there. Like here's the assignment, here's the end result we're looking for. How do you want to do it? How do you want to approach it? Right? And like what kind of
Mhm.
growth does that empower? What kind of um autonomy does that really, create and trust, back to the trust thing too. It's like what type of trust then like gets created in that moment of like, oh my gosh, like my leader like appreciates like who I am and like really believes in me that I'm able to solve this problem in my own way. Right. And like that's where I'm seeing even in the coaching world, it's like there's models and there's you gotta do it this way, you gotta do it that way. It's like I tell clients like I have no idea what we're gonna like accomplish in our time there. And that's the beauty of it, right? Like we get to
Mhm.
create it and it's just more so what's your own how to for your life ultimately.
That's such a good point. Because I think in the same vein, so many people are looking for like a get rich quick scheme, or, you see so many TikTok videos
Yep.
that are like, here's how to make passive income and make $1 million next year. And you're just going to sit on your couch for an hour and it'll come. So it's like we all want just that easy, quick fix,
Yep.
but that's not really going to change anything. And you mentioned mindset, which I really want to ask you about, because I was on a call earlier this week with a bunch of female entrepreneurs, and the question was posed like, in here, scale of 1 to 5, how much do you want to change your mindset? Where 5 is the most and 1 is the least. And 75% of people said 5, that they want to
Wow.
just completely change their mindset. And that was like, I was like, whoa, these are all, successful women killing it in their respective industry. And even they want to shift their mindset, but no one
Mm.
really knows where to start. So, I guess, working with a coach could be a good place to start. But what would be some of your suggestions if someone's in that place of like, I'm a 5, I need my mindset to change right now?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it really depends on the person too, right? Like
Right.
some people, enjoy like writing stuff down and like just kind of getting it out. And we carry so much like just in our heads, like in our hearts, like throughout the day. It's like find a way to maybe release that in a way. So some people write like journals, some people will go and, go have a drink with someone and just like talk about it, right? And like, but yeah, as far as like shifting a mindset goes, I feel like there's got to be enough like motivational and emotional like juice, like power of like the why behind that, right? It's
Hmm.
like it's not doing it because it's like the new thing to do, right? It's like I'd suggest, spending some time with like what's my why behind that. And once that's clear, I mean I think coaching is like one of the most powerful tools out there to like help move, from mindset to another. And it's like it's just this whole safe space to give yourself permission to make a different choice. And that's okay for
Hmm.
people to do. Like I just want to emphasize like that is okay for you to do something different. Even though you've been doing it, the last 5, 10 years the same way, that's okay if you want to do something different, especially if it's going to elevate your quality of life and especially if it's going to influence positive in a positive way, the people around you too. So, but yeah, that's ultimately what, adopting a valuegenic mindset is all about. That's precisely what I help people with. It's using ways in your mind that are already existing that actually help shift to a mindset that's going to bring more value to your life, and not only your life, but the people you're connected to.
Well said.
One of the things that I see a lot with people hiring a coach, and Jordan, I'm just going to throw this out there because I'm sure you think it all the time, but don't want to say it. People hire a coach and think that they're going to get prescribed a list of ways to not fail,
Yep.
or ways to mitigate any risk. And sure, if you've never started a business before, I can help you, file a business license or open a bank account or do some of the early stage meanderings. But, Benjamin Franklin and Thomas Edison really famously had all those quotes about how I didn't fail, I found 1,000 ways to do it wrong.
Mhm.
And a coach is a person who helps you harness your energies and refine your ideas. It's not somebody who's going to keep you from falling. It's a person who's going to help you bounce back, but you have to redesign failure in your mind. And this is the reframing of mindset to me, is people are so afraid of failing, but they just need to redefine what they see failure as. Is failure like losing all your money and going to jail? Is failure dying? Or is failure like having one person today think you said something stupid? And they really like it's I love the quote about it's not who you think I am and it's not who I think I am, it's who I think you think I am. that
Mhm.
that
That's
causes all the
good. Who
fear.
said that?
It's
Yeah.
not what Abby says to me, it's what I think Abby thinks.
Right.
And I do a lot of work with branding and with early stage people, and here I am dropping quotes like crazy, but Jeff Bezos has a really great one about what is branding. He says branding is what people say about you when you're not in the room. And people always want this
Mhm.
big essence of perception, but I think they're so worried about what other people think or about what other people do or doing something in the fastest way with the least resistance that they don't follow their own path. And I've always been super critical of coaches because I have a lot of friends that have spent a ton of money on coaching, but they don't come to it with a goal for someone to help them refine. They just want to say, tell me all the things that I've done wrong, like a doctor, and then give me the tools to fix it, not teach me how to fish or teach me how to make mistakes and bounce back. And or I want to follow these prescribed paths that other people have in the past, so I don't have to do the back work or fall on my face. And I love the way that you've outlined your framework and how you work with people. And this leads to something great. Abby has a couple questions she asks at the end of everyone, but I'd love to ask you first, if people are interested in working with you, kind of what makes you different than other coaches and what could they expect if they've never worked with a coach before?
Yeah. Thank you, Andy. And agree with everything you just said there, right? Like there's just super quick, like this common misconception of like what coaching is. Like there's a million different coaches out there. But yeah, like that's where I took it very serious as far as getting credentialed, right? Like as a professional coach and going down that path of um really working on like certifications and all of that, because yeah, that's a misconception. Like tell me how to fix my life. Like how would I possibly know that? Right? Like I have some ideas of like how we can help you, but yeah, like anyway. Um as far as like what people could expect and kind of what I like to think separates me, really embracing my introversion is a huge part of what I do, and I haven't seen a whole lot of that out there in the coaching world. And I really feel like that's what helps me get to a place where I can really value people, really nurture people, really help them understand like their own potential. We see kind of the balance of, like the systems we were talking about and the autonomy, finding that balance in between the two. And ultimately, like it's my passion to just like help people get to where they are, to where they want to go. Like I just love it so much, just being there for people and appreciating them for who they are. But yeah, like as far as like if someone were to work with me as far as coaching goes, you can expect a lot of like introspective questions. You can expect a lot of um You can expect a very safe space to explore things without judgment. You can expect, you know, ultimately, like the clients I work with, I actually was with one before our call today, and like just the friendship that's like formed between us, and just like the cheerleader, you know, that I have become for her has just been it's undeniable. So I could go on about that, but those are a few of the kind of key things. And if someone is looking for a coach, and like, I just want to say, like, it's a serious commitment too. Right? It's like, to your point, Andy, and like even something you said earlier too, Abby, is just like people want to be prescribed something and just like have it fixed tomorrow. It's like, well, this stuff takes time. Like, think about what's gotten you to this point in your life, right? Like, that's a lot of history behind you. So to like change it, that's going to take some time and some conscious effort and some commitment. So um, I only work with people who are ready. Is what it ultimately comes down to.
Right. I mean, this is something you cannot just like force someone to be ready for. You know,
Yeah.
timing in life is so important.
Yep.
With my other matchmaking business, I get that 100%.
Mhm.
And just quick plug also for Jordan, all of his links for social media, website, everything is below. Whether you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, it's all there. So click it, follow him, contact him. And Jordan, I love to end these by giving you a shout out and letting you say what you're celebrating right now, whether in business, in life. What's something exciting you got going on?
Yeah. Well, here in Denver, this fall has been incredible. So I just like I'm into meditating and like just being present, and like all of that, right? So I've just really appreciated how beautiful this fall has been. Um, but literally today, last year, was the day I left my corporate role and started my coaching business. So
Wow,
it's a 1 year
congrats.
anniversary for me, and such an honor to be able to do this with you too, on a day like today. It's really special.
Awesome. Well, thanks for spending it with us. You got to like go out and party now, right?
Yeah, that's right. Exactly.
Go drink some champagne or something later today, or just go
Yeah,
meditate in a beautiful setting. Either
we'll
way.
celebrate for sure.
That's amazing. I mean, you know, I think anytime a business, as all of us business owners, whenever we survive a day, a year, 10 years, whatever it is, it's
Hmm.
something to be celebrated.
Definitely.
And hopefully gives you, you know, the confirmation that you're doing something that people need and enjoy. And Jordan, thank you so much for coming on the stream with us. This was really fun to chat with you. I know we went a little over, we took up a little more of your time, but there was just too many good things to talk about.
Yes, time well spent. I am more than happy to spend it with you too, and thank you again for the opportunity and for the good things you guys are doing too. I really appreciate
Yeah,
being here today.
of course. Have a great Friday, great weekend, everybody. I'll let Andy end the live stream and we'll sit here awkwardly for a minute.
See you guys. Have a good Friday.